Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody, and happy Friday. It's Dr. Bridget Young from babyformulaexpert.com here for another happy hour. Today, we're going to be talking about a question that's kind of specific, but I've received a lot, and that is, I'm really trying to decide between a formula, and I've read a bunch of good things about Enfamil Inspire and Similac Pro, and then sometimes and Gerber Good Start, and I can't decide which one is best. Which one is best? So that's what we're going to talk about today. Got my handy notes, got my wine, and we're ready to go. Little background, I'm visiting my best friend who has a baby the same age as me, adorbs, overload. And they are both sleeping, so I'm in the basement so I don't wake them up, and then we are gonna go have a drink at an Irish pub because St. Patrick's Day is my favorite day of the year, and my best friend's mom is watching our babies. She's like a second mother to me. How sweet is that? Anyway, let's talk about formulas so we can all go enjoy our St. Patrick's Days. One, I wanna say I have done a full happy hour on both Similac Pro formulas and the Enfamil Inspire formula. So if you're really considering one stronger than the other, I highly suggest you go watch those. This is going to be a brief review so that you can compare between them. The short answer to the question is, of course, one is not clearly better than the other. It's literally like comparing not just apples and oranges, but like, I don't know, apples and pineapple, this specialty, sexy breast milk ingredient in each of these formulas because they're so different. So I'll give you a brief review of each, and then the answer is you choose which specialty ingredient or which formula you feel like is going to be most beneficial for your individual baby, given your individual family history and that baby's quote-unquote risk. So that's the answer, and here are the facts that hopefully will help you decide. We're going to hit Enfamil Inspire first. Now, Inspire has gone after adding a few ingredients that are found in breast milk that are going to hopefully help with immune development. These are lactoferrin and milk fat globule membrane, or MFGM, sometimes you see. Okay, so what is lactoferrin? Lactoferrin is actually a protein, a very specific protein that has lots of functions. It's in very high concentrations in breast milk, and it does a lot of things in the breastfed baby, all that are slightly related to immune protection and immune development. First, lactoferrin binds iron in a good way. We refer to this as sequestration. It sequesters iron from bacteria that need it to grow, so it helps keep bacteria from growing that way. It also serves several other antibacterial functions. So lactoferrin is one of those things in breast milk that keeps breastfed babies from contracting infections. More so than formula-fed babies. And it also has, there are cells in your baby's intestine that have a lactoferrin receptor, meaning lactoferrin in the formula comes in and it binds to a receptor on a cell and initiates all this stuff in your baby's intestinal cell, some of which is to express proteins that are also antimicrobial. So the short answer to a complicated scenario is lactoferrin in a bunch of different ways increases your baby's immune defense against infections. And they've actually done some pretty awesome studies adding bovine lactoferrin, so lactoferrin from cow's milk, to formula, and shown that babies who have that formula have decreased respiratory infections between 6 and 12 months. Preemies who get lactoferrin in their formula are less likely to develop sepsis, which is an infection of the blood that is very life-threatening, especially in preemies, and Giardia, which is a bacterial infection. So this is an important point because I've actually had a few angry people reach out to me and say, I can't believe you're saying that lactoferrin does these things because bovine lactoferrin and human lactoferrin are very different. This is true. Lactoferrin in breast milk is different than lactoferrin in cow's milk. However, these studies used cow's milk lactoferrin because it's easier to get your hands at. So that's what is in formula. It is bovine lactoferrin. But we have done the research community has done extensive research to show that it still preserves some of its function in humans. So that's pretty badass, actually. So, I mean, that's legit. These, they've done studies to show that these things occur. Milk fat globule membrane is actually a mix of proteins. If you've seen breast milk or any kind of, if you put any kind of mix that has oil and protein together, you know, they're droplets is what they call. The fat will condense into these droplets. You know, the cream rises to the top. The membrane that surrounds that ball of fat is the milk fat globule membrane. It's a bunch of different proteins. It's like this magic mixture. And together, all these different proteins serve a lot of beneficial effects in breastfed infants. So the proteins that surround the fat in breast milk. So they're trying to get at that with milk fat globule membrane from cows in Inspire. That's all I'm going to say about where it comes from. But again, they have done studies where they've actually added this milk fat globule membrane from cows into formula and showed that babies who received the formula with the milk fat globule membrane added had decreased incidence of bloody diarrhea. So they were less likely to get diarrhea. And when they did, they were less likely for the diarrhea to be so bad that it was bloody. I'm like, well, that's pretty great. Every mom hates having bloody diarrhea. It's terrifying. The babies had decreased illness levels, reduced illness closer to the amount that breastfed babies have, specifically otitis media, aka ear infections. Formula-fed babies are way prone to ear infections compared to breastfed babies. So that's a pretty awesome gig. And what you hear about a lot is that the babies who had the milk fat globule membrane protein in their formula had increased intelligence. Technically, yes, this is true. They're not lying. They did a study. What happened was these babies had an average score of 106 on a Bayley's intelligence scale, which is a intelligence test that you give to babies who are clearly not verbal. You know, you can't just ask them a math question. The control formula had a 102. So statistically, yes, they scored higher. If you had a conversation with somebody with a 106 versus a 102 Bayley score, you would have no idea. It's kind of an indistinguishable difference. Is it relevant on a population level? If you ask the people who are in favor, they would say absolutely. Is it relevant to your individual baby? Probably not. However, it's important that this research is done, and it's encouraging that it showed positive results. My point is, if you choose to not feed this formula, you are not setting your child up for stupidity. You will be fine. So that is Inspire. Here's the other thing to keep in mind. These are not the only two ingredients. The other ingredients in Inspire are great. It's an intact protein formula with additional whey, and it has a prebiotic, which is fabulous. However, if you are feeding a partially hydrolyzed formula now and you get all jazzed about this and want to switch to Inspire, that is a huge jump in terms of the protein, which is the hardest part to digest. So that's what I don't like, is when people get really excited about this one ingredient and they forget that all the other ingredients come together. So while I have no problem with all the other ingredients in Inspire, you do need to keep them in mind, especially if you're changing from something that's totally different, because that's a really big transition for your baby. Okay, that was a lot of talking, so that's Inspire. It's added 2 proteins and protein blends that are from breast milk to improve immune function and immune development. Similac has just also recently released their Pro formula. They have Similac Advanced Pro and Similac Sensitive Pro. The Pro is basically pretty much the exact same thing as the original version, except it adds a human milk oligosaccharide, which they have on the label as 2FL, which stands for 2-fucosyl lactose, which you don't really need to know what it is, but you just need to know that it is an HMO, which stands for human milk oligosaccharides. So human milk is chock full of these oligosaccharides, which are long, complex carbohydrate chains. They're basic chains, they are basically a type of a starch or a fiber that the baby doesn't digest. They provide no calories. There is a lot of this stuff in human milk, and it's a really hot topic in research right now. It's all the rage amongst us very nerdy researchers. So the human milk oligosaccharides literally books have been written about it. So I'm going to say a couple things, but know that it's a complex, very active area of research. Human milk oligosaccharides serve many functions for the breastfed infant. They first serve as a prebiotic, meaning food for healthy bacteria. So these human milk oligosaccharides are one of the biggest reasons that the bugs that end up growing in a breastfed baby's intestine are different than what end up growing in a formula-fed baby's intestine. These human milk oligosaccharides can serve as decoys for infectious agents, parasites, viruses, bacteria. Human milk oligosaccharides can kind of basically bind them in the intestinal lumen, that open space, so that they don't end up causing infection. Awesome. Again, this is one of the reasons that breastfed babies are less likely to contract infections than formula-fed babies. And then, kind of like lactoferrin, there's also a lot of indirect ways that they end up boosting breastfed babies' immune defense and contributing to breastfed babies' immune development. Okay, cool. Yeah, if you're a formula-feeding baby, you're like, great, thank you for telling me all these things my baby doesn't have. Your baby will be fine. So I want you to know that, because what they have done, human milk oligosaccharides are very variable. There's over 100 different types in breast milk, and the amount and concentration dramatically vary from mom to mom. So it's not something that we can just add to formula, because we don't know what the best mix is, etc. But research is headed that way. What Similac Pro has done is, so there's over 100 HMOs, human milk oligosaccharides. 20 of them make up most of the HMOs. So they took one of the most major of these 20 of this 100, which is 2-fucosylactose, and they have basically made it in a lab. So it's like making a starch, and they've added that to formula. So that's what you're getting. It's not like you're getting the HMOs from breast milk, you're getting one particular in a given known concentration. But then they have done studies, of course, to show that it's fine, it's healthy, or it's, babies, it's not harmful for them. But when you add it to formula, they've done studies to show that babies who get the formula with this one HMO have lower concentrations of inflammatory cytokines. What does this really mean? It's hard to tell. It could mean that these babies have lower levels of inflammation. It didn't mean that the babies who didn't get it were sick, overtly sick, like take you to the doctor sick. Usually we think of it as a good sign to have lower concentrations of these cytokines. So it's pretty promising. But again, this is not going to make or break your baby's future. So that is, I just got a notification on my phone. So that's what you need to know about Similac Pro. And again, the other ingredients of Similac Pro are going to be the exact same as Advance and Sensitive. So Advance is really similar to Enfamil in that it's an intact protein with extra whey. It's a pretty standard formula. And Sensitive is their quote-unquote reduced lactose. It's very reduced in lactose. It's going to have a minimal amount of lactose. The rest of the carbohydrate comes from corn sugar, and it has less whey protein. So just again, keep in mind, switching from some other formula because you want this Pro, this HMO, keep in mind what other ingredients you're going to be changing for your baby, because that's a big switch. Okay, last one. And then I'm going to wrap up with a few thoughts that I really hope you stay tuned to watch, because I think they're the most important. Last is Gerber Good Start. This doesn't have any particularly sexy ingredients, meaning it's been on the market for a while. Their big pitch is 100% partially hydrolyzed whey. So their formula is 100% whey, which empties the stomach faster, and it's all partially hydrolyzed. Their standard formula is partially hydrolyzed. So they've been researching, the infant nutrition community has been researching this type of formula for a long time. And we know that it's potentially less allergenic due to the partial hydrolysis, or the breaking down of the proteins, and that it can prevent atopic dermatitis, translation eczema, and eczema type skin allergic related reactions in babies who are at risk for development of these reactions. So the AAP, the American Academy of Pediatrics, actually recommends that if a baby is at risk for a severe food allergy or atopic dermatitis, basically if you have a family history of these types of allergic mediated problems, that you start your baby off on a partially hydrolyzed 100% whey formula. Gerber is one. So that's what they've kind of hung their hat on, trying to mimic breast milk, is in reducing allergic type reactions. I also personally think it's a really good choice for families who have an immediate family risk of severe autoimmune disease, like type 1 diabetes or severe celiac disease. This is because they've done research with fully hydrolyzed formula showing that it can help prevent development of these diseases in the babies. I personally think partial hydrolysis is going to give you the same benefit. Again, that is my personal opinion. So that's why I recommend it for families who know they have that disease risk. The other cool thing about Gerber Good Start, which some people really like, is that it's the only, to my knowledge, quote unquote, symbiotic on the market, meaning it provides both a prebiotic and a probiotic all in the same formula. So you don't have to try to bother adding some of that in your own house, which is great. Probiotics, especially when delivered with a prebiotic, can have really great benefits for the baby. So when you're comparing these things, as you can imagine, there's no clear answer. If autoimmune disease is a really big concern for you, I might go with the Good Start due to the hydrolysis of the proteins. If you've really suffered from diarrhea and stool consistency or constipation issues, maybe the Similac Pro is a better choice. If your baby has a long-standing history of ear infections or just some chronic infectious issues that are, not enough to put them in the hospital, but just are real pain for your family, maybe try the Inspire. So, but just please switch wisely. So know, are you changing your protein source? Are you changing your carbohydrate source? And make the switch slowly. Okay, here are the thoughts that I really hope you guys will watch the video to the end that I want to end you with. All of these are great options. Parents stress so much about choosing the right one. Two things. One, the choice is never permanent. You can always switch again. And two, the anxiety that mothers put on themselves about having to feed formula and choosing the right one, that anxiety trickles down to how you interact with your baby. And that is so much worse than choosing one versus the other. So do a little bit of research, watch this video, let your mommy intuition help you decide, and then stop worrying about it. If it doesn't go well, you can always switch. And then I want to end particularly by saying your formula choice is not going to make or break your baby's future. One versus the other is not going to be what gets them into Harvard versus doesn't get them into Harvard. So while, my career is in doing research about human milk and formula ingredients, so I'm kind of biting myself in the tail here. We want to make formula the absolute best and closest to breast milk as we can. However, the differences that we find in these formulas, while significant statistically, for example, the cognitive improvements from milk fat globule membrane is much less than the benefit your baby's brain gets from you interacting closely with your baby, making eye contact with them, talking to them, basically just loving them. So those kinds of things really matter so much more. Once your baby's crawling around, allowing them to explore their environment, while being safe, eat a little bit of dirt, that kind of stuff builds their immune system so much more than the decision of, did your formula have human milk oligosaccharides or not? So keep those things in mind. Choose your formula wisely and do your research, but know that all the other aspects of your parenting and how you love your baby and how, you're able to bond and interact with them makes so much more of a difference in how they turn out in the long run. This choice of which can you buy, again, is not going to make or break your relationship with them. So take a deep breath, trust your intuition, and spend the time better being with your baby fully present. That's my soapbox, but I stand by it. Okay, well, it's St. Patrick's Day, so I'm gonna get going. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you so much for those of you who sent emails. I'm slowly getting through them on happy hours. If you have something you'd like me to address, please do so. Oh, I should have said this at first. I have a big announcement. I just finally figured out everything online to launch actual private consulting online. So if you're having a really hard time figuring out a feeding plan for your baby that you're really comfortable with and that you really think is going to, fit in their family, and you've got some issues that need a little more help than just these videos can help you with, go over to the website, visit the Work With Me page, and set up a free consulting call, and we'll see if I might be able to help you. All right, thank you so much, guys. I will see you next week, and happy St. Patrick's Day. Go have some fun. Bye.